Comedian Katt Williams has entered the chat, this time backing up some explosive claims made by actor Terrence Howard. If you've been following the drama, you know Terrence recently appeared on the PBD podcast and dropped some serious truth bombs about what really goes on behind closed doors in Hollywood's elite circles, specifically the infamous parties hosted by none other than Diddy. Now here's the kicker. Terrence isn't just talking about your typical celebrity bash. He described sprawling mansion gatherings where the real action wasn't happening on the dance floor, it was hidden behind closed doors. Walk into the wrong room, he said, and you'd witness scenes that would leave most people stunned. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Long before Terrence ever decided to speak out, Katt Williams had been sounding the alarm about the same underground culture in Hollywood, one that allegedly requires men to sacrifice their dignity, identity, or, as they put it, their man card, in exchange for success. Back then, Katt's revelations were brushed off as wild rants. But now, he's looking more like a prophet than a punchline. Terrence didn't mince words. He explained that giving up your man card wasn't just a metaphor, it's about surrendering your core sense of self. You come into this world a man once, he said, and when you hand that over, whether out of fear, ambition, or manipulation, you don't get that energy back. And the cost? According to Terrence, it's not just personal, it's spiritual. He claimed that those lured into these secretive scenes often lose a part of themselves permanently. Some get fluid, as he put it, and from that point on, there's no solid ground left to stand on. His closing message was crystal clear: protect your integrity at all costs. No amount of fame or fortune is worth selling out who you are. And as for what's next? Rumors are swirling that Katt and Terrence might be teaming up, possibly launching a podcast that pulls back the curtain on Hollywood's hidden world. If true, we may be standing at the edge of an industry reckoning. So, what exactly did Katt know all those years ago? And is this the beginning of a powerful alliance to expose Hollywood's deepest secrets? One thing's certain, the silence is breaking and the truth is starting to echo louder than ever. Terrence Howard recently peeled back the curtain on an uncomfortable side of the industry, sharing an unsettling encounter he allegedly had with Diddy. According to Terrence, it started off innocently. Diddy reached out multiple times under the pretense of wanting help with acting. He pitched it as a coaching session, but something didn't sit right. Terrence recalled showing up, ready to work, expecting scripts, dialogue, some sort of material. But instead, Diddy just sat and stared. No lines, no scenes, just vibes. Then, the tone shifted. Diddy pivoted to wanting to hear Terrence's music. Again, Terrence showed up with good intentions, played some tracks, and got met with the same uncomfortable silence. Just staring. That's when his assistant pulled him aside and hit him with the real, "I think he's trying to make a move." And with that, Terrence didn't hesitate. He cut all ties and never looked back. But Diddy wasn't the only one, Terrence says. There were other powerful producers who made similar advances, slick with their invitations, but not subtle about their intentions. And Terrence? He wasn't having any of it. He made it clear, come at him sideways and you might catch more than a no. He explained the harsh truth. Turning down these advances didn't come without a cost. Saying no in Hollywood, especially to the wrong people, can put a full stop on your momentum. Opportunities disappear. Phones stop ringing. But for Terrence, preserving his manhood and principles wasn't up for negotiation. When you approach a real man with disrespect, he said, you'll get a real response. There's a difference between a guy and a man sets boundaries you don't cross. As expected, the internet erupted. Social media lit up not just because of what Terrence said, but because of who said it. A-list actors rarely speak this openly. Very few, if any, have ever come out and straight up said, Diddy tried to smash. But guess who's been trying to tell us this for years? Katt Williams. Way before this became a trending topic, Katt had been dropping breadcrumbs. He told Fat Joe how Diddy once invited him to dinner, and he declined, plainly stating, "I don't let men take me out." Then, in his now legendary Club Shay Shay interview, Katt got even more candid. He claimed he turned down Diddy's advances not once, but 4 separate times, refusing multi-million-dollar opportunities to protect, in his words, his integrity and his virgin whole. And the wild part? Katt's always said he has the receipts. So now that Terrence is echoing similar stories, Katt's not just backing him, he's championing him. There's even buzz about the two potentially teaming up to launch a podcast, where they'd unpack the deeper truths behind the industry's shiny surface. Nothing's confirmed yet, but fans are already rallying for it. One user on X summed it up perfectly. "Somebody please get Terrence Howard and Katt Williams in a room together with a mic. The world ain't ready." If this happens, it won't just be another celebrity podcast. It could be a raw, unfiltered reckoning with Hollywood's most unspoken truths. Long before Terrence Howard ever decided to speak out, Katt Williams had already been sounding the alarm about what many considered an underground, almost shadowy culture in Hollywood, one that allegedly requires men to sacrifice their dignity, their true identity, or as they call it, their man card, in exchange for success. Katt's public claims were often dismissed as nothing more than wild rants from a comic who had lost touch with reality. But in hindsight, his words are starting to resonate in ways that many can no longer ignore. In fact, Katt's once dismissed warnings now seem more prophetic than the punchlines they were originally painted as. What exactly does it mean to lose your man card? Terrence Howard was blunt in explaining that it's not just a metaphor, it's a deeply personal and spiritual transaction. "You come into this world a man once," he said, "and when you hand that over, whether it's out of fear, ambition, or manipulation, you don't get that energy back." For him, the man card is more than a symbol of masculinity. It's the essence of self-respect, integrity, and strength. Giving it up isn't just a momentary lapse in judgment. It's the irreversible loss of something that defines your very existence. It's a sacrifice that, once made, can never truly be undone. This concept of a man card isn't just theoretical for Terrence. He's seen it firsthand in Hollywood, and he's not the only one. As Katt Williams has long suggested, the price for fame and power in the entertainment industry often comes with this heavy cost. And it's not just about compromising artistic integrity, it's about losing the very core of who you are as a person, especially as a Black man in an industry that often seems to prize conformity and submission above all else. But as Terrence reflects on the darker side of his experiences, the weight of these lost man cards becomes even clearer. He recalls one particular incident that perfectly encapsulates this unsettling dynamic, a moment when he showed up at what he thought was going to be a typical meeting with Diddy. Terrence had been invited to come to the mogul's house to discuss a potential collaboration, something he assumed would involve typical showbiz talk, scripts, projects, maybe even a new role. What he didn't expect was the awkward silence that greeted him the moment he walked through the door. Terrence was ready to dive into work. He was expecting to hear lines, discuss characters, go over material, something concrete that would give him direction. But instead, Diddy simply sat there, staring at him. No scripts, no lines, no agenda, just silence. This silence was no accident. As Terrence recalls, he wasn't just being ignored. It wasn't that Diddy was unprepared or unprofessional, it was that the silence itself was part of a much deeper game. Diddy wasn't waiting for Terrence to act or respond to anything that made sense within the traditional framework of their work. The atmosphere was more about power, about seeing if Terrence would be willing to surrender to whatever unspoken authority was being established in that moment. Terrence felt the weight of that silence, as if his presence was being tested. But he didn't let it faze him. Then, the tone of the meeting shifted. Diddy pivoted from business to personal interest. Rather than discussing a role, a script, or a project, he casually asked to hear some of Terrence's music. This, Terrence thought, was a more familiar territory. He had his tracks ready, knowing that many industry moguls, especially those with an eye for multifaceted talent like Diddy, would be keen to hear what artists were working on. So Terrence began playing his music, expecting a productive discussion, a collaboration, or at least a genuine critique. But instead, he was met with the same uncomfortable silence. There was no praise, no feedback, no comments on the tracks or the production. Just more staring. The energy in the room was thick, unnerving. Terrence, trying to make sense of the situation, couldn't shake the feeling that the encounter wasn't about the music at all. It wasn't about business. It wasn't about creativity. It was about power. At that moment, Terrence realized something important. Diddy wasn't just interested in his acting skills, or his music, or his talents. This meeting wasn't about business. It was about seeing how far Terrence would bend. Would he surrender his man card for the chance to work with one of the most powerful figures in the industry? Would he submit to the unspoken terms of the meeting, which seemed to revolve less around art and more around influence and control? For Terrence, this wasn't a moment of professional opportunity. It was a moment of spiritual reckoning. His instincts told him that something far more sinister was at play, something that involved far more than just Hollywood networking. This was about power dynamics, manipulation, and the subtle but pervasive pressure to conform to an image that Hollywood, particularly in certain circles, wants to impose on Black men in the industry. When Terrence's assistant tipped him off about Diddy's real intentions, it became clear. This wasn't a regular meeting. It wasn't even about music or movies. It was a test of his willingness to bend, to be molded into something the industry would accept, a test of his loyalty, his submission. At that point, Terrence did what he thought was the only thing he could do. He cut all communication. He walked away, knowing that staying in that environment would mean compromising something far more important than his career. It would mean compromising his identity, his dignity, and his very sense of self. This story isn't unique to Terrence Howard. In fact, it's a pattern that Katt Williams, Eddie Griffin, and other outspoken entertainers have referenced in interviews and public discussions. The entertainment industry, particularly for Black men, often seems to operate on an unspoken, sinister code. And as both Terrence and Katt have made clear, the price of success is sometimes much more than the public is willing to acknowledge. For Katt and Terrence, refusing to play by those rules has come at a personal cost. But their willingness to speak out and expose the uncomfortable truths about Hollywood's power structures is beginning to resonate more and more with those who see the cracks in the system. Whether or not the world is ready to hear their messages is another story, but one thing is clear: they're not backing down. In the end, the question isn't just about Hollywood's hidden agenda, it's about the price we're willing to pay for success. How much are we willing to lose to stay true to ourselves? And how much are we willing to let go of to climb the ladder? As Terrence Howard and Katt Williams have shown, the cost of giving up your man card can be steep, perhaps more than many are willing to pay. This isn't just some conspiracy whispered in corners. It's a conversation that's been simmering for years, and Katt Williams has been one of the loudest voices stirring the pot. He's been calling out the alleged trend where Black male actors are nudged or pressured into donning dresses before they reach A-list fame. And now, according to inside sources, Terrence Howard may have faced serious career blowback for pushing back on that very idea. But this where the dress dilemma didn't begin with them. Way back in 1999, Eddie Griffin subtly raised eyebrows in his self-written film Foolish, which tells the story of a rising comic navigating the traps of showbiz. In one particularly bold scene, studio execs try to sell him on a role that requires him to wear a dress. They pitch it as deep, artistic, and career-defining. Sound familiar? When his character resists, it's not just a punchline, it's a statement. A moment where he channels what so many actors probably wish they could say in real life. Kiss my black. Fast forward to 2006, and Dave Chappelle echoed those same sentiments in a now iconic sit-down with Oprah. He revealed how, during a film project with Martin Lawrence, he was encouraged to wear a dress for a scene. His gut reaction? No, not comfortable. Not doing it. He expressed his concern over how often these jokes seem to target black men specifically. Then came Kevin Hart, who, when asked about that infamous dress conversation, initially said he'd never been put in that position. "You've got to know your boundaries," he said. But soon after, Kevin appeared in a Saturday Night Live skit wearing a dress, and seemingly overnight, his star power exploded. The timing didn't go unnoticed, and for many observers, that moment marked a turning point in his career. Katt doubled down on the allegations last year. During his Club Shay interview, he even claimed that Martin Lawrence tried to get him into his first dress for Big Mama's house. But when Katt shut that down, Brandon T. Jackson swooped in and took the role. He tell me, "Katt, when I come back, I need you. You're my young partner. You're my brother in comedy. When I come back, just promise me that my next movie, it'll be me and you. We going to do it together. We going to do some buddy cop." I said, "Martin, you got my mother word. My go do what you got to do. When you come back, I'm in your movie. Don't trip. I don't need to see the script or nothing. You know we get in that office." And this fool pull out Big Mama's house too. I almost died. And I got to read the script from all these good white people where this want me to get in a dress with him. And I'm literally saying, everybody, why is he in a dress again, you? Already played the old lady as a FBI agent. We can play anything now. We can be playing a dog catcher this time. Why do we need to be in a dress? And I get so mad. I say, "You don't want me, you want Brandon T. Jackson." And that's who they went and got. Twice I said it, they went and got him. Just like I'm telling you, I had that other dude's work. I had all of it. All I did was say, I want to punch it up so it's not offensive. Now circling back to Terrence Howard, some new reports have surfaced suggesting that the whole dress situation was one of the main reasons he was blacklisted in Hollywood. When asked about the rumors that he was kicked off Iron Man 2 for anger issues and not being easy to work with, Terrence quickly shut that down and made it clear that he wasn't about to let Hollywood bosses dictate what a black man should look like on screen. According to Terrence, black actors are being pushed to adopt a more effeminate vibe if they want to make it to the top. He said, "My daddy taught me never take the vertebrae out of your back or the base out of your throat. I ain't raising sheep, I raised men. Stay a man. Everything is androgynous. You know, the more successful men now are the effeminate." And then in another recent interview, Terrence went even harder, doubling down on his view that Hollywood has an issue with strong black men, and he also pointed out that only white men are allowed to be both powerful and non-threatening at the same time. The man has been dehumanized. Terrence said, "With the new formula, most men are made to be effeminate and not have their power or sense of strength. They allow white men to be able to be strong, but when it's black men, it's seen as a threat." He also added, "I don't want to remove a few chromosomes to fit in someone's story, so I feel they need to expand their stories to allow men to be men and simultaneously appreciate a woman's beauty." Now, as you can imagine, the internet is going wild over this whole drama. Some people are calling Terrence and Katt conspiracy theorists, arguing that these two need to change their subject because we've got bigger issues than actors wearing dresses. But on the flip side, there's a whole crowd of fans who are giving them major props for pulling back the curtain on Hollywood's shady side and are even hoping these two team up to spill even more behind-the-scenes tea about the industry. Now, what's your take on all this? Are you with the folks who think Katt and Terrence are just chasing clout and spreading conspiracies, or do you think they're really exposing truths that other celebs are too scared to talk about? Drop your thoughts below and don't miss out on this next video.